work in a messed up way. Love your hair, Sarah. Love your eyes and tie, David. Hey, thank you. Are you watching a different show, Colby? Yeah, I'm not even here, really. I mean, yeah, here I am. Can I jump to a question, please? Honey Bear Kibby, you're on. Question. It has to be relate in some way to conspiracies, though. So feel free. Honey Bear is here with a question. But now I create an account. What is the process I need to take to become an operator? Honey Bear Kibby. Well, Honey Bear Kibby, if you come back in a couple of nights, we will definitely consider you as an operator. How will your administration improve public transit? Well, I can think of one way. That's the highway. Yeah, the highway. Making sure that the highway is nice and clean. No, I'm just kidding. Here's one of the ideas that we are proposing, a maglev rail train. And public transit, for me, would be to get in one of these and go 350 miles an hour straight to New York. That's not a conspiracy, though. It's just a reality. In Shanghai, they have one of those. Are you a little jealous you don't have one of those? Yeah, well, we can make all that happen by creating essentially a maglev rail train that pays for itself over time. Using the concept of wind and solar energy generating electricity, we then can create enough energy to make money, which will help pay for tracks. Very simple concept. My thoughts on gay marriage, I personally don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's a same-sex marriage issue on a national level. I think it's a state-by-state issue. Yeah. So this is Conspiracy Monday. Welcome to the show. Good evening, ATP bot, Colby, Meow TV 2, welcome. Meow TV 2, you've been around with us since the very beginning. You remember when we first profiled the death mobiles in Shanghai. Actually, this is in Hong Kong. Yeah, that's a form of public transportation. That's a death mobile that appears in Beijing whenever somebody commits a crime that's punished by death. So they actually kill people inside of that. Notice how I said that with a happy, cheery face? I think it's sick. I think it's absolutely sick that they even have those things. Yep, I remember that show. The idea of a death mobile, they have 40 of those things, and they apparently commit public executions and put it on videotape, so it's in some way humane by videotaping it. I don't know. The Chinese have created this weird mindset. Now, everyone knows that the Greek debt is still dogging the euro, and you probably know that the Greek situation developed in part as a result of putting on great Olympics. Remember the Olympics? Well, Sarah thinks that the Olympics triggered this entire meltdown in the markets in Greece. I know, it was very beautiful. I thought the Greek Olympics were better than the Beijing Olympics, personally, on a personal note. Now, something's not happening. Google decided to change their look. How could they do this to me? Notice how Google changed their front page? Wow, aren't they daring? Stocks dropped 162 points today. In Asia, they're also dropping on European debt concern. Asian makers of semiconductors and chip-making equipment may decline today after Intel Corporation, the world's largest chipmaker, cut its sales forecasts. Intel's not expecting to make more, plus they're having problems with employees in the Shanghai or the Singapore markets. Thank you. So Sarah will be in just a second. My last comment didn't mean anything. I didn't have any real intended meaning behind it. What was the last comment you were referring to? Because I said 16 things in the past 2 seconds. Google is like Obama. They change in a different direction too often. Yeah, well, Google made their mainstay about creating a very simple approach. They didn't advertise on their front page. Kind of helped them get to the place that they are right now, and now that they're there, I guess they think making a change is kind of good for their image. Dude, you read right over me? I came here to interact with you. Dude, I'm sorry, I forgot to read you, Shanio. Let me interact with you. Hang on. Shanio, I'm looking back in the chat, and I don't see anything. I mean, you just said, dude, you're not interacting with me. I mean, that's the first thing you said to me. And I'm interacting with you, dude. Right now, right here. David, I have to ask. Go ahead. Is McSchmo your son? Oh, is Mo Schmo your Who is Mo Schmo, Shawnio? I'm not being condescending, and how dare you? How dare you pander to me? You are just, just... So basically your view on public transit, how do you plan to make that actually happen? I plan on telling all of the train companies that they can use the train tracks for cargo because we won't need them. Unlike Obama, he wants to share the train tracks with high-speed rail. So, in other words, you have to get a slow-moving freight car out of the way in order for the high-speed rail to go through at a certain hour. I do look like Moshmo. Thank you, I don't shine shoes no more. Are you guys in here just to, troll? Because that seems to be what your whole MO is, to troll here. Have you decided that this is where you're going to troll tonight? Yes, I have no son. Yes, somebody believes they're my son on the internet. I must say that it's quite an honor, but I don't have any children. Did you know that there's an actor named Wagner? I forget his name. He's a soap opera actor. He just realized he had a daughter, and he met her. Jack Wagner. That's it. Jack Wagner, not Robert Wagner. Jack Wagner. He's a singer. He's been on a couple tours with Rick Springfield recently. He was a soap star. Yeah. I know a lot about Jack Wagner. I actually met Jack Wagner. He used to work at a bar up in Brentwood, in Hollywood area, or actually West LA area. Anyway, Jack Wagner just met his daughter. Came out of the blue. He didn't even know he had one. 30 years ago. And you met Willy Wonka? That's nice. Anyway, that's kind of exciting. Hello. Long time. Hello. I am here finally. It's been a rough couple days just getting all of these different things we've got going on. I've got design drawings I'm working on in various SketchUp. I do design work in SketchUp, which is kind of nice. We're working on the designs for the book, and we've been writing the book. And today I ran into a huge dilemma. My computer keeps crashing on me every time I use some book writing software. So I was writing the same 3 paragraphs over and over again, 6 times. That's what I did today. It was insane. Finally I realized you type a sentence and you hit Control S, Control Save. John, David, where's Sarah? Sarah is just in the other room. She's getting out of the spa, and she'll be out shortly for your edification. Yeah, my thoughts on SOPA in a daze. I believe SOPA is a violation of our rights to freely download after things have been on the internet for a while. It's not like we're all selling these things. And I can see where SOPA makes sense insofar as people stealing first copyrighted editions, and we should prosecute that. But beyond that, how can they possibly initiate laws that are going to put people like you and I in trouble for simply downloading what? The song? Come on. Look what happened in Napster. It's barely a stand-up display in Best Buy. I went in there and I couldn't even... What happened in Napster? It's like bizarre. Do they even make any revenue? I don't know about that Internet Soldier 3. We know 1 and 2. Tired of the mainstream media concentrating on trivia instead of calling the presidential candidates on their lies. Yeah, I don't blame you. I'd like to get a venue in the mainstream media, or we call it the main slime media. The main slime media would be nice, just to call people on their lies. I agree. You can call me on anything I've said. I haven't lied. So, Mr. Beer is finally working. I see bubbles on my thermometer. Fapper is in. We got a lot of trolls in tonight. I guess you guys are wondering what I'm all about. Well, you probably saw my blackface video on YouTube. And if you haven't, you can check it out. It's designed to get noticed. I don't know, I just need people hitting on it. That's what they tell me. But I have a YouTube account just for myself at David Jon Sponheim. And I think it's worthy of a gander, a look-see. Check it out, see what you think. See what you think about my blackface personality, because I can go into that mode if you want. Not that I want to, because it's kind of sad that I even had to do it. Hi, Sunstar. I was hoping to get mass media exposure by this time, and since I didn't get it, I said, I'm just going to run the blackface video. And Troll Account liked it. Yeah, Haro, please. Sarah will be in very shortly. She's just getting herself ready to go. Yep, I had nothing but problems with this computer earlier. You can imagine writing paragraph after paragraph, and then all of a sudden the computer locks up. It wasn't this computer, it was another one. The computer locks up on the most beautiful writing I've ever done, and then it says, it's gone. Gee, I got to rewrite that. So eventually I rewrote it 3 times. I am running in 2012 FAPR 6.6. I don't like to say that last 6 because it's, it's bad karma. Very quick question. I believe the massive illegal immigration is an indicator of massive government corruption. I totally agree, Honey Bear Kibby. Yay. I totally think we are mismanaging the border with Mexico and all of the illegal immigration. Barack Obama is rubber stamping green cards left and right. He's given illegal immigrants over 1 million green cards this year. I agree. The answer is agree. Yep. So the corruption also is related at the border too. We're looking at massive corruption within the ranks of the Border Patrol. Of 10% of the Border Patrol inductees last year, of 10% tested with polygraphs, 61% failed. Can you imagine? 61% failing that? Well, I have a little bit of a story to show you that relates to that. Let's see. Here we go.
Mexican drug cartels infiltrating the American...
Okay, let's go to better sound quality. Hold on. Hi, welcome. Yes, in response to your question about border control, yes, we were thinking about a 1,000-mile fence along the border with Mexico. See, 1,000-mile fence along that border, and guess who's going to build it? The illegal aliens that are currently in our prison system. Dum-da-dum-dum. That's right. They get free. They get a trip out of the country when they finish, say, a 60 or 90-day work period. And then they get furloughed, and then we send them on back to their own country. When we have a fence, a 1,000-mile fence constructed along the border with Mexico, we won't have to worry about massive immigration floods of people from Mexico City. All right, whatever. If we vote you in, what are your takes on our corrupt judicial system? FAPR, good question. Do you think discover the flaws of the presidential candidate policies before the election, or do you want to wait you can help me with the flaws. Yeah, there's a lot of flaws in all of their arguments. The Republicans talk in circles, and they always seem to talk about, you got audio now, they always seem to talk about social morals and bringing prayer back in school, and gosh. And some people, like Bachmann, Michelle Bachmann, actually want the 1,000-mile fence that I've been promoting for over 3 years. But she's not getting any support from Sheriff Arpaio. Yeah, he's not endorsing her. He's endorsing Rick Perry from Texas. People die fighting for democracy. Every time I think of Rick Perry, I think of George W. Bush. I don't know what is it with that guy. Is he like morphing into Bush as he walks along? So, the mainstream media is well and willing to ask the candidate specific questions that would reveal the flaws in their policies. I see your point, Honey Bear Kibby. Good point. Yeah. Zoe's here. Okay. Who won? I just wonder who won. Rita, Katrina can make the fence too. Yeah, we're not going to rely on Rita or Katrina to make the fence. They'll blow it away. Okay. Yeah, they will blow it away, all right. That's one thing about hurricane, gale force winds, they will blow it away. But with our stacked cargo container idea,
that would be very difficult.
That would be very difficult to blow away. Yeah. Imagine cargo containers. Hi, Sarah.
Hello. I'm trying to put on your beautiful necklace.
Oh, that's fine. Imagine cargo containers stacked along the border. It's a simple way, even if we go too high, it goes up about 22 feet, and then run electric wire across the top. And then put sensors, motion detectors inside of every single one. Hey there, Sarah is back from her spa.
Yeah.
Hi, Sarah. Wow, you look great.
Can you help me?
Oh, sure, yeah. If only I... Here we go. That's a tough one. How could you ever do that by yourself?
I don't know, I have.
You have in the past? How long did it take you?
I don't know, just like a minute.
Oh, well, you did better than me.
Now, you want me to do it?
No, I got it, but I mean, it's a test of my abilities.
So it's in the possible future war with Iran in the days asks.
Yes, well, I don't think we're going to have a future war with Iran, but I believe that most likely it would just be decimation. Since there are only finite numbers of discounted college educations available, every single discount goes to an yes.
Doesn't go to a U.S. citizen.
It doesn't go to a U.S. citizen. Now with the DREAM Act, apparently illegal aliens are going to get in on the act. In California, they can get an actual college scholarship. An illegal alien qualifies for a college scholarship. Jerry Brown signed that into law last month. How about that? And then you talk about NAFTA. CAFTA has been signed right under your nose. Barack Obama signed it. Zoe likes the fact that you look good in red and black. I like it too.
Oh, thank you. I decided to be Christmassy.
Zen Underground is talking about that little drone that got captured. Let me take you a picture of the drone for you, folks. This is something that was pulled in by Iran and does appear to be a drone. There it is.
Yep.
It's a very nice drone. Oh, yeah, I like the drone. Yeah, it's a nice drone. Oh, yes. Well, they're going to take it apart and find out all our secrets. And, you know, in the infinite wisdom of the makers of this device, Lockheed Martin being one of them, they didn't come up with a self-destruct mechanism. Now, how do people get a PhD in nuclear or in aerospace technology and not have a self-destruct?
People like you would think of such a thing. People as bright as me don't think of it, but you do. You're super smart, David.
Super smart. It's self-destruct technology. It's very simple. It's called a trigger device that would just detonate. It's real, all right, yeah. Planet Fairy says it took them 15 hours to download the info on it. Really? So they already have the government admitted it? Really?
Meow TV2 says it's 8 years old.
Yeah, and the plane does look to be undamaged.
And in the days after, why is it undamaged if it was crashed or was shut down? They claim they use lasers.
They use masers.
Masers, there you go.
Iran has been developing maser technology. Vibrating electromagnetic waves can actually control things, and you can guide it down to the ground safely.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I've never seen it work, but apparently those Iranians can make masers, but they can't seem to enrich uranium and set up a cruise missile that can, be fired on any kind. It's absurd. Of course they've got the ability to create cruise missiles. Of course they pose a threat to the world. What are we going to do with Iran? Do we open a dialogue with them and go, hello, let us make a deal. So, you took our hostages? I sound more like a Yiddish man. So you took our hostages and then didn't give them back for 444 days, but we should forgive you. I'm very perplexed about this. They'd love that. I'll approach them as if I were, supporting Israel. I don't know how do you approach a guy who's going to go up to you in a deal and basically screw you over. How do you approach the situation where you know you're going to get the raw end of the deal? Because that's what they really respect. They like to lie to people. They respect lies in that country. And how do you deal with somebody like that? You don't know if they're telling the truth. They're like slippery as all get out. They're like a little weasel. Ooh, try greasing a weasel and holding on to it. That's what dealing with Iran is like. I'm starting to get excited just thinking about it.
Israel and the Palestinians have been fighting forever. Yeah,
they have. Yes,
the
beat goes on in Israel.
Jerusalem closed today all access to the mosque for good. They closed the ramp. I didn't know that.
The ramp is closed to the Al-Aqsa Mosque for good today. Yep.
Wow.
I wouldn't doubt it, Meow TV. You know, they're not very happy. Netanyahu believes that Iran is definitely weaponizing uranium. I don't blame him. Oh, yes, you do remember content that isn't their troll account. We re-engineered those. The original uncut version of the blackface video will probably be out in a couple of years. We're producing a DVD set. It's over 16 hours of film that I have of the... No, I'm kidding. I did like 15 minutes, I think, max. So we condensed them down to about 8. Howdy, gatekeeper. You're disappointed?
I don't know.
No, you can't be disappointed.
We should
the best
try to get the drone back.
The drone is gone.
Sorry. I know. I don't think we should even try to get it back.
Yep.
We should just build a better one.
I think we could ask them for it back. If they don't, we'll just use bunker buster bombs on all of their nuclear silos. Would that work for you?
Yeah.
I cannot dictate your feelings. You cannot control me.
Previously said illegal immigration isn't an indicator of corruption.
I disagree. I never said that. I've always said that illegal immigration is an indicator of corruption. I've never said that it wasn't.
Illegal immigration.
Yeah, it's a clear sign. Illegal immigration is a clear sign of corruption. What do you mean? I've always said that. If Obama has had any say, he will build another drone to save the drowned drone and repeat, and equally make the same mistake without creating a self-destruct mechanism. Of course.
So true for fecal facts.
Oh, you're claiming illegal immigration is the government's fault? Okay, you could argue that, yes. It could be also corruption and the government's fault. Honey Bear Kibbe. Honey Bear Kibbe's new, was a guest for the past month and became an actual person.
Very
and
good.
Hopes to become an operator someday. CDO for Jesus is here, new person, welcome. Guest 2-pack, I've seen you here before. You think we should have the Department of Brainwashing troll account? Yeah. Damn, since Iran is a drone, does that mean they get better technology now? Because I heard America spent a lot on it. Good point, swore it up, yo, whatever.
Okay, I was thinking of letting you be and I'm making a phone call now.
Oh, yeah, go ahead and make your phone call. You got a 7 o'clock phone call, don't you?
No, not tonight, so that's tomorrow. So I was just going to call the...
Okay, there you go. Meow TV sent a link. Let's take a look and see what that is. His links are already interesting. Translation in progress. Jerusalem, the slope of all dangers. The Israeli police force closed Monday a footbridge of access to the esplanade of the mosques in Jerusalem because of its instability. Okay, they closed it down because of its instability. Engineers estimated that the outdatedness could lead to a collapse on the Wailing Wall, located just downwards.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense.
It makes sense to close that. If they need to fortify it with stainless steel construction so it doesn't rust.
It's used by non-Muslim tourists.
It's used by non-Muslim terrorists. Tourists.
Sorry about that. Okay, you probably previously agreed that the FDIC, working with the U.S. banks and the Mexican government, would help illegal aliens obtain money.
No, I never agreed to that. You're making all this up. I never agreed to that.
And then he says, I mean, you didn't.
I've never agreed that the FDIC should work with U.S. banks to allow Mexicans to have more money.
No, yeah, exactly.
You're so funny. Sword up your whatever, decaf style, says, grr, man, America's going down the drain with Obama just sitting in the house eating donuts and drinking presidential coffee.
Decaf style.
Decaf, that is. With plenty of crack cocaine. I don't know for a fact that Barack Obama smokes crack cocaine right now, but I do know for a fact that crack cocaine is highly addictive. And he did admit to smoking it in college, at Occidental College. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There you go. And I do think that it has a 97% recidivism rate. So Barack Obama has a 97% chance of smoking crack right now in the Oval Office. He did admit in his book that he did experiment with crack. I did smoke crack at Occidental. Let's be clear. It was a bad time for me, and once I joined the CIA, I straightened up my act. I started getting some better stuff. They should have Obama on the, are you smarter than a fifth grader? Yeah, that would work.
Yeah.
Is it without a teleprompter?
I don't think he'd be smarter than a fifth grader.
He could be like Tony Montana hanging out in the Oval Office. Did you hear that Barack Obama tripped the alarm to the White House multiple times yesterday? Or was it 2 days ago? Yeah, he's tripping the alarm to the White House. What's going on? What's he carrying? Is he carrying some sort of major contraband? Somebody should strip search the guy and give him a full-body TSA check. Speaking of that, oh my God, Charles Schumer, the reigning liberal Democratic senator, is trying to create more of a budgetary crisis. He wants people to be attendants and advocates at the TSA counter for passengers. He wants passenger advocates at every single counter to protect their rights. You know, Charles, I think there would be a simpler solution, and that is decommission this rapid scan device, use it on the luggage, don't bother people with it, just use it on the luggage because the luggage isn't even being scanned properly, and focus on just allowing people to come through the door. It would be a lot cheaper than paying for a passenger advocate. Yeah, they'd probably have to have a religious advocate for every particular person that comes up there. And, of course, they'd have to have multiple language advocates. And, yes, of course, we'll find someone who can speak your language, sir. We want to be completely politically tolerant of all of your needs. Just get rid of the rapid scanners. I managed to scrape a picture of the last scan I had, and it was pretty good. As you can see, I'm a pretty well-built man. Yeah. Well, oh, yeah. Little work around the middle there, but hey, I'm just kidding. That isn't me. I haven't actually used an airplane for flight purposes since 9/11. I'm one of those Americans that clearly doesn't believe that the CSA is doing a good job. Yeah, I haven't flown in, 11 years? I usually send my magic carpet, where I fly in my mind to special places. Have you needed to? I did need to travel, yes, and I chose to drive instead. That's how angry I am at the way TSA treats these women and these men. You know, I can only imagine what they do when they got a hold of this spot. It's like, oh my God, human anomaly time. But no, seriously, 4 women in their 80s recently have had major problems. One woman with a back brace, she had to take her whole outfit off, strip searched, an 84-year-old woman. A woman with a colostomy bag had to remove her pants. Can you just imagine this scene? And all these women going, ma'am, I got my rubber gloves on. I'm just going to touch your body like this. And you don't mind if I move it. And this is like, I'm 84 years old. Don't touch me, my colostomy bag. It's so sad. So I want to do something about that. And I don't like this TSA thing at all. I think we could replace the entire farce with Marines, plainclothes Marine Corps men and women. Walk right up there and then have them scan you with a little metal detector and say, you're ready to go, ma'am, Semper Fi. Yes, well, believe me, these aren't disgruntled seniors. Can you imagine being 84 years old and having diabetes and having your medical kit hooked up to and then messing around with your IV? And I mean, it's just... Come on, the one person, have they found any plastic panties since they installed these devices? The answer is no. Yes, we could replace all airlines by suspended maglevs. Let's talk about how we are going to make some changes in the airline industry. Briefly, let's take a look at this. Read that paragraph below. Okay, now that you're done reading it, this is a particular amazing super blimp that was created back in the 1940s. This is what they had projected would be some form of travel. Now the beauty of this is it gets up in the air without consuming any gas, any fuel. And it flies at 85% less energy than it would take a normal jet. Imagine a cargo area with 1,000 passenger capacity on something like this. And it's spinning along at massive speeds. This is what I would like to see built, at least in the testing stage. Imagine going across the country from LA to New York in 10 hours and paying $100. Here, thank you. And not even having any jet noise. It's just like whoosh, whoosh, and you're there. Whoosh. Take a nap. We'll have plus this could be retrofitted with parachutes in the event of a massive disaster. So the idea of a plane crash would be a thing of the past. Parachutes on all different points, and if the thing blows up, it just parachutes down. It costs $20,000 to $30,000 to fill up an airliner with jet fuel. Proof equals fact, good point. And that's just to go one way. That airship was not built. That was a prototype back in the 1940s. They never actually built it. Again, it's suppressed information. But one of the theories that is out there, and this, since this is kind of like a conspiracy thought, is that Area 51 is developing dirigibles like that. Believe it or not. It's one of the theories that's out there. Area 51 has the potential to do that. It could theoretically be developing dirigibles. Now, some people said, this is what's Area 51. This is not Area 51. This is clearly a spacecraft from Mars. So there's nothing to worry about. But the idea came out in the Tacoma News Tribune just 3 years ago. They actually published a story from the FBI announcing that secret dirigibles were being built that could fly 70,000 feet above the Earth and hold 200 men and be deployable and stealth at the same time. So theoretically they could drop 200,000, or they could drop as many as 200 men into a wartime area unseen, undetected. Now that story was pulled almost as fast as it arrived, which is very interesting. But that's just one of the theories, that Area 51 is being used to create these carbon fiber dirigibles that are used for stealth photography and apparently voyeurism from 70,000 feet above the Earth. You need your iPhone. Oh yeah, you do need your iPhone. What would you do without it? Okay, good. Well, at least you're having fun. I know. Well, you know, your iPhone is costing you close to $99 a month, I'll bet. Just ballpark figure. And your TV at home is running you about $100 a month, ballpark figure. $200 a month. In 12 months, you could easily have $2,500, $2,400 if you just go to the library and go on the internet there and be kind of a geek. $2,400 could buy you an even bigger LCD screen TV next year. Think of it. You could get a 65-inch LED 3D TV. You'd be the first in your block. So give up your iPhone for 1 year and see how much money you have. Seriously, dude. And then impress your friends with the biggest LCD, LED, 3D TV you'll ever get. Isn't it amazing how materialism has become such a focus in our life? Well, that is by design. You see, many years ago, the powerful Rockefeller family started funding education. And this is also a conspiracy theory, that they were trying to indoctrinate all of the young people in America into essentially becoming consumers and being good little robots and going off to work and pushing your pencil around and collecting your paycheck. And guess what? It worked. We're all essentially been brainwashed by the public school system. Oh, it's a company phone? Okay, sword up your whatever. Colby hates the Rockefellers. My mom actually met Nelson Rockefeller before she passed away. When she was a young girl, she used to work at the Rockefeller Center. Back in the 1940s, my mom handled all the switchboard. She was a switchboard operator with plugs, little analog plugs she'd have to plug in. Say, hello, may I help you? 1 ringy-dingy, 2 ringy-dingies. And she'd connect, oh yes, Nelson Rockefeller, sir. Yes, right away. Click. Amazing. And she did that back in the 1940s. It's one of her first jobs. And she got a chance to meet Nelson Rockefeller. I don't like globalization, Honey Bear Kibby. We support a concept called regionalization. We think globalization is actually hurting the bottom line in America. We're losing our trading rights. We're losing in the deal. The idea of also outsourcing so much with globalization is killing jobs and job potential in America. I'm against it. So that concept called regionalization is a different concept entirely. We want things grown locally. We would like, ideally, for people to grow the kind of vegetables we import from Ecuador in greenhouses right near where you live, right down the street, down at the regional greenhouse. Well, jobs, what jobs? The jobs all went overseas. You believe globalization has a positive impact because it enables the U.S. to increase trade in services, manufacturing, and agriculture? Yeah, but it turns out all the big corporations are going overseas to hire people to increase that trade. So when cars that are made in America are actually mostly made overseas, How is that helping the job market here? I actually do agree with you in some ways, because Japan, like Toyota, 85% of the Toyotas that are made and sold in America are made in America. That's an interesting thing. Warren Buffett, you love him. Okay. He has a son. I think his name is All You Can Eat Buffett. But his son is going to take over his entire business. The Berkshire Hathaway stock option is going to be taken over by his son, who's a corn farmer. Right, I think his name, I don't know, I forget his name, but he's definitely Buffett. I think it's All You Can Eat Buffett. What was the purpose of the tax cut anyway? Are you talking about the payroll tax cut of 2%? What tax cut are you talking? Because that's what the Republicans and Democrats are talking about right now, is extending the cuts in the payroll tax, and it's only a 2% cut. Yeah, if we extend that, I mean, okay, it saves people $1,000 who make $50,000. Do you make $50,000? Then you would probably like an extra $1,000. I don't personally think it's something I would extend. We are running out of money. Our nation is bleeding out financially. We're in no better shape really than Spain or Portugal or any of the other countries. The only difference is we've got this tremendous inertia of the past behind us, and the solid respect of other countries to a certain degree relative to their country. Our dollar is doing pretty well. Our trade deficit is decreasing slightly. We're seeing some positive results in that. Okay, the idea was in 2000 the government had overtaxed Americans, and that year the IRS collected more tax than the government. Yes, but they should have used that to pay back the debt. That's the thing, Honey Bear Kibby. You know, if they start paying back the debt, then they'd probably be in better shape. I have another strategy about the debt. I believe that it's possible. I'm not going to say it's probable, but it's possible to erase the entire debt. You see, I never signed off on that debt. Did you? The average American doesn't realize that the debt is linked to the United States. The United States is a corporation. The United States of America is not a corporation. We are citizens of the United States of America. We don't harbor any debt. The United States Corporation does. So if you look at that paradigm, you might guide your way into the future and realize, well, if we still have a debt with England and all the countries that claim that we still owe them, why would we continue honoring that debt? Why wouldn't we just declare bankruptcy and say, hey, sorry, you lose. Next. China has a huge $1 to $2 trillion part of that $15 trillion debt. That is correct. Yeah, so China, example number 2. I mean, what would happen if they all of a sudden defaulted on $1 trillion or $2 trillion? They would get really upset, don't you think? What are they going to do? Well, there's a conspiracy theory that right around 2008, Hillary Clinton shuttled her way off to China to sell away our property as collateral. Did you hear that theory? No one could ever run this theory down, but it was one of the theories that Hillary Clinton was over there, and she was signing away our assets, all of our property, as leverage to cover this $1 trillion or $2 trillion deficit. Yes, it did, despite the dot-com collapse and 9/11. Yes, it did. Okay, so the tax cuts aren't so blamed for the current deficits. No, the tax cuts have nothing to do with deficits. Barack Obama has overspent by 4.5, make that $4.6 trillion. He has overspent, okay? That is on Obama. That is just part of the debt, granted, but it is a significant recent part. When you overspend $4.6 trillion, that contributes to a $15 trillion debt. Oh, okay.
But great, perfect timing. So it's good.
Okay, Planet Fairy is not feeling well. Take it easy.
Day. And here you go. I'll put you on speakerphone. You need to talk.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, hello everybody. I told you it was Conspiracy Monday. Sorry.
Oh, Dr. Mount. Hi.
Dr. Mount's on the phone.
Hi.
I should just call
Thank you.
I should call it Mount Monday.
Well, it used to be Mount Monday.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'll go with Conspiracy Night. I've gotten over myself. At first I needed everybody to get real serious, but in the last week I've had 4 stories hit 1 billion readers.
Really? A billion readers? How do you get a billion
how
readers?
How do you do that?
I didn't know a billion people could read.
I hope you said America's third party in every single one of those.
Yeah, really?
Well, some of them, in fact, I did. I talked about Herman Cain stealing John's 10-10-10 idea and making it a 999 idea.
Exactly. Good. I'm glad you talked about that. Yeah. Well, Herman Cain's out of the picture. They vilified his character, and apparently they couldn't find any other women that could stand up against him, so he left. Now I'm carrying the only torch for the fair flat tax.
Well, they're going to bump Newt out of the running, I'm sure.
Newt is pretty loosely connected to a very rich and powerful bureaucracy. If Newt goes any farther, it's because they are pulling his strings like a marionette.
That's correct. Newt sat with Nancy Pelosi a few days ago and was talking about expanding the world government to handle global warming. Yeah, well, that was a couple of years ago. He actually did that, and now he's answering to that big, huge flaw in his character. There's not one Republican out there that would embrace global climate change, let alone global warming and cap and trade, and Newt did. So Newt has a big liability right there, and he's been trying to backtrack out of that. It's not going to necessarily work for him. And Mitt Romney can't come up with a cohesive thought other than, gosh darn it, I want to like Israel. And and I guess Newt just pissed off the Palestinians something fierce when he said that they were invented. It was an invented group of people. Fact, they were invented. They were part of Syria, and it was an English colony. Mm-hmm. They called it Palestine, and then Palestine under the British allowed the immigration of people after World War II and during World War II, in fact, and they came in and they purchased Palestinian desert land. And after they declared themselves a nation in 1948, the rains began. Mm-hmm. And what was a desert land turned into a farmland. And now the Palestinians are pissed because all their desert that they sold to the Israelites turned into farmland. Well, the Israelites are the best farmers in the world, and we saw them do that in the West Bank with beautiful greenhouses that didn't have a single weed in them. And then the Palestinians got a hold of that section when they reacquired that land, and they totally knocked the greenhouses down and destroyed them, and they aren't growing any food there. So go figure. They're not growing any food. They're an unruly people. What's going on? So the Israelis have given much of the original acquisition from the Yom Kippur War over to the Palestinians, and they still desecrate whatever they get. It just seems like it's a no-win situation. They won't even improve it. But then the issue really comes down to, well, do they have the means to sell things from the Gaza Strip? Are they able to produce agriculture? If so, how can they with water quality that's really, really bad? So there are some real issues. Go ahead. Why not set up the carrier base? And we've talked about this before on television. Why not set up a U.S. carrier base in the northern part of the Sinai Peninsula, in Aqaba, the southern part? We would have free access to the carrier base. We wouldn't have to pay Iran or anybody else. We would set up U.S. land there and then use carriers to provide water for your seawater pipeline and water the Sinai and call it Palestine. There's nobody who lives out there. Yeah, I agree. In fact, that was one of my original concepts with the seawater pipeline, was to develop it for the Sinai Peninsula as an offering, a peace offering to the region. And we could have a carrier group there. We wouldn't have to pay any foreign government because we could claim it as U.S. territory, and we could put it in the carrier group, and we would supply the power for a while to run the entire seawater pipeline, water the entire Sinai Peninsula, move all the Palestinians into their own farms, and let them have their own 160 acres of watered land. Exactly. Honey Bear Kibbe lives in Israel and says all they do is use the land to launch more rockets into Jerusalem, the Hamas. And there's this new group, they're jihadists. They're called Islamist jihadist group in the Gaza Strip, and the Islamist jihadists are the ones that have taken responsibility for the recent killings at the border and the big conflict with Israel. So we are seeing Hamas become more mainstream now. Go ahead. A couple of developments in Israel in the last couple of hours, in fact. Okay. The first one was actually the evening of December 7th when the United States bombed two Iranian ICBM launch platforms and destroyed over 400 ICBM missiles.
When did this
Iran
happen?
has been purchasing and building ICBMs for years. Now, an ICBM only has to go about 2,500 miles if you're in Iran, so a cruise missile is an ICBM if you live in Iran.
Okay.
And we blew up 400 of them, and then in the last 4 hours, we have been landing several hundred troops just north of Amman, and the United States is now establishing a very large base camp in preparation for an invasion of Syria. Now, that's happened today as we speak. Right now, the planes are landing.
Did you get this information from any particular news source?
Yes, and nobody has films. The original news source was from the Iranian papers. It was a little quirk about 2 Iranian bases disappeared. The father of the Iranian ICBM program was killed along with all base personnel in 2 bases. And then someone from Israel blogged on what was written in the small Iranian newspaper. That was the first story. So then I checked with my sources, and I can tell you who did it and why.
Right.
It was a State Department thing. The U.S. did the bombing.
Okay.
And then the second one is coming in from odd sources on the Internet, showing some of the troops now landing north of Amman about 50 miles and establishing a base camp.
Okay. Well, now there is we've had word that we have a large group of Marines have told us that there's a large group of Marines gathering in Kuwait. So what you're saying does make sense, and the theory that
going from Iraq to Kuwait, but
right.
They have until the 31st. See, the contract with Iraq runs out at the end of the year, and unless there's a war, we have to be out of Iraq. So the United States has until the end of the month to start a war with Syria, and then we can retake the bases in Iraq. That's part of the contract. So if we have a war with Syria, the contract is null and void, and we don't have to leave Iraq. So we are pushing for a war now. There's the IMF, William Hague, signed a contract with the new Iranian freedom fighters, which is what is happening now in Russia.
Right.
They have freedom fighters in Russia now, and the IMF is paying them. In Syria, they're killing Syrians, and they're just arming them in Russia right now.
Right. This is exactly what's going on. You know, and Putin has a backlash from one of the billionaires that wants to run against him, and there's a lot of people that are against. 50% of the Russian population are against Putin now, and they don't like his attitude. He can't correct it. All the damage control in the world won't correct it now.
No, the people who are blogging against Putin are paid for by the IMF.
Okay.
The people who rioted, the State Department gave speeches over there, and I warned Putin on APFN and on Pravda that the State Department is going over there to set up riots, and they poo-pooed the idea, and a week later they had the riots. So I showed them where the money came from.
Well, you nailed that one on the head there, Dr. Mount. You know, all of these predictions you post on Pravda, you know, it's interesting to see many of them come true, and people don't contact you and say, wow, what's up next? I mean, how are you getting anybody reaching you through this organization? Have they contacted you?
No, absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
You know, we tell the Russians they're going to have riots, and we say we can stop the riots. If you call me, I can tell you how to stop the riots. Because just as I know that the riots will occur, I also know who's doing them and how to stop the riots. Nobody picks up the phone. So then I say, well, we just bombed Iran. We're going to send combat troops into Lebanon. Please call me because we can stop this war before it starts. Nothing. There's almost 5,000 dead people now in Syria, and no contact with the Syrian government. Nothing.
Well, the Syrian government and the President Assad has actually denied any deaths, civilian deaths. He claims that 1,000 of his men have died, and he's completely detached, people say. Some people think he's just a puppet or a figurehead. Other people think he's just devilish, and he's denying any knowledge of what's happening. I'm sure that what's going on around the Middle East with the Arab Spring is all by design, and our government is engaged in a very dicey game destabilizing relations with various countries. I'm not sure where we're headed.
Well, you know, you'd think, okay, and I'll just mention a few of the countries whose presidents I tried to contact, and instead I did TV stories, and then I did APFN and Pravda stories, and now the presidents are dead, and I'll just mention a few: Kazakhstan, Thailand, Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, Oman, Yemen. Just to mention a few of the presidents, I said, you're going to die unless you pick up the phone and call, and then we can set out on a course that will stop this.
So you're thinking, you believe that you can save these presidents, the president?
Oh, yeah. let me tell you something. Syria would be a fairly easy save.
Okay. Why would you save a person who's committed atrocities?
Well, the first thing he's going to have to do is stop the atrocities, isn't he?
Well, let's start with apologies for killing thousands of people and then go from there. I personally don't want to destabilize other nations. I'm a non-interventionist. But I can see where we could step in and do something productive in areas like peacemaking, in the Sinai, areas like that. But to go in and launch a war against Syria, and President Assad has actually stated that the entire Middle East will burn if he goes down, and he has the firepower to do it with all those ex-MiGs that he's acquired from Russia.
Maybe not. We took out those 2 Iranian bases from 180 miles up with 2 modified TRB-3s, and the TRB-3s basically fired a magnetic cannon, which is a microwave pulse, at the frequency which would cause the charges in the tips of the ICBMs to explode. Now, they were non-nuclear ICBMs.
Right, non-nuclear ICBMs,
use the 400 warheads on the ground. There were another 200 or 300 warheads. They were building more ICBMs. Most of the parts for the ICBMs are coming from China. I have the ordering. I actually got on the internet the materials where they're actually ordering these parts from China. You have
the procurement order for the Chinese replacement parts for nuclear missiles?
The Chinese made U.S. cruise missiles, which are made on the design of the 100 cruise missiles Bill Clinton gave to Afghanistan back in 1990.
Oh, right. Yeah, you believe there were 100 nuclear missiles that we gave to Afghanistan in 90?
We fired them at Afghanistan, and they landed. They didn't go straight down. They actually landed, and the Chinese took them and brought them to Afghanistan and rebuilt them and then sent them to Iran from North Korea. The initial several hundred of them were brought to North Korea in a ship labeled pulp and paper. They were actually brought from North Korea to Iran. And from those, the Iranians took them apart and then started building them and ordering the parts. They actually have a parts list, and they're putting them together there.
Now, how do you know all this? I'm just curious, how do you know all this?
Partly because I learned it from the naval intelligence.
Okay.
And partly because I found the ordering parts right on the dang internet. Got into the State Department, and in the State Department they actually had seized the ordering documents, and I copied them on my computer.
There you have it. And one of the things that I've noticed about when you get these things, you print them out right away, but then once you go there and you go back, the website's been scrubbed. It's almost like they're tracking you and scrubbing behind you as they go.
But there's enough now put together so everybody knows who's ordering the attacks on Syria. It's the IMF, International Monetary Fund, run by David Rothschild, who picks up the phone and orders the White House, the United States being a corporation, orders the White House to invade Syria.
Right.
And they put out an invasion plan. Right now we have boots on the ground north of Amman, Jordan, which is about 75 miles north of our troops in Israel, because we put troops on the ground in Israel.
Right.
And there's a road between the two, through the Golan Heights. And we're going to build one hell of a base camp.
Well, this is not impossible to believe, because I'm standing here, folks, listening to Dr. Mount discuss what we are doing now, staging up war against Syria, and we just saw Libya virtually run like a clinic. They bombed the heck out of it, dropped over 300,000 rockets and close to 200 or 300 cruise missiles, took out Muammar Gaddafi, didn't even give him a trial. Pretty much, I don't want to talk about what happened to his body after he died, but he basically was removed from the equation. Throughout this whole process, I just uncovered information that the Federal Reserve was loaning Libya $26 billion during the time that Muammar Gaddafi was in charge, which is strange in and of itself. And I'm not the only one who's concerned. Bernie Sanders was very concerned 6 months ago in Congress. He was screaming about it. What the heck? What's going on? The Federal Reserve is giving Libya money. Well, we didn't know it, but we were acquiring their central bank, and we were taking over their country through NATO. And our actions in NATO, we own 75% of all NATO troops. U.S. does. So we are essentially doing whatever the IMF tells us to do. And now you're telling me we're going after
the United States Federal Reserve System. There's also the German Federal Reserve Bank, the French German Federal Reserve Bank. Well, the United States Federal Reserve Bank has literally been buying up other controlling interests in other Federal Reserve banks.
Mm-hmm.
So out of New York, the United States is basically now becoming the central clearinghouse for the world. Now, what happened in Afghanistan, and this is how bad our foreign policy under Obama has been, which is why the Republicans and the Democrats, they got to go away. In Kabul, in June, the Bank of Kabul collapsed.
All right.
And what happened was someone from the IMF, International Monetary Fund, running the Bank of Afghanistan, was transferred to the Bank of Kabul. He built buildings, so he'll build a $350 billion building or whatever it is. It'll cost them probably $10 million to build this big, huge. Well, basically, he funneled most of the money from the Bank of Kabul into Bank of America and Wells Fargo. And then after he raped the Afghan people, he moved to Washington, D.C., Mr. Kitrat.
Who are you talking about
Now
specifically?
The Bank of Kabul was raided by the IMF. The IMF is raiding every central bank around the world.
Right. But who are you referring to when you said he was? Who are you referring to?
US-based banks.
Who are you referring to when you said he?
Okay. Let me back up a little bit. What I'm about to tell you is happening all over the world. Afghan President Karzai is demanding that everyone responsible for the collapse of the Bank of Kabul be sent back to Afghanistan. Specifically, he's talking about a man named Qadir Fitrat.
Okay.
Qadir Fitrat was in the Central Bank of Afghanistan, and he was transferred to the Bank of Kabul. And he built buildings, and he paid people off to ensure that the materials were brought to the building site.
Mm-hmm.
So he would pay people off in the embassy. The embassy would ask U.S. troops to protect the cement factories, the rebar factories. They would bring in the supplies. They built the buildings. They would pay the people off in the U.S. embassy, and in the meantime, they would transfer large amounts of money out of the Bank of Kabul.
Right, right.
Until eventually what happened is people who had their money in the bank, and the average Afghan makes about $900 to $1,000 a year at the most.
Wow, that's more than I make. That's good.
They would go to the bank, and they would say, "Where's my money?" And the Bank of Kabul closed.
Right.
What happened to Qadir Fitrat? He's living in Virginia, just south of Washington, D.C., under the protection of the United States.
Right.
He's probably going to become a teacher like Gorbachev did after he broke up the Soviet Union.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it wasn't Gorbachev. It was Boris Yeltsin.
Banks all over the world and transferring the money to the U.S. banks.
Right.
And then bringing criminals here to the United States and putting them under the protection of the FBI.
Right. Well, let me bring a whole. Let me just. Could I just wrap up a generalized idea here so people can understand what we're talking about real quick? Synopsizing briefly, what Dr. Mount is referring to is the New World Order, essentially using the monetary system through the central banks to take over every single country that's a holdout, including Libya and Syria, Yemen, and all the others. Go ahead, Dr. Mount.
Correct. So what we've got is a situation where the United States, being used by the IMF, is now gutting the banks of every country they can get their paws on. And the countries that will not bow to the mighty International Monetary Fund, run by David Rothschild, include Syria, Iran, Russia, China, and North Korea. That's why they're the bad guys. They refuse to bow. Now, Libya also backed out, and so did Tunisia, and so did Egypt. So their leaders had to be killed. The countries had to be bombed into the Stone Ages, and then we had to come in and rebuild their banking system.
So, do you realize what you're saying? Do you realize what you're saying has never ever seen the light of day in the mass media?
Well, it has in Pravda now. I just posted that story, and the last 4 stories, the one about the bombing of the Iranian bases, the one about combat troops in Jordan, the one about the FEMA camps are being funded by Senate Bill 1873, I think it is.
1867.
1867, and the fact that bestiality is now legal in the U.S. military.
Yeah, folks, I didn't want to tell all of you that sodomy and bestiality is now legal in the U.S. military.
Well, not technically legal yet. They are in a closed session to decide on this bill. House is in a closed session to decide on this. And
that's correct.
So anyway,
be careful with your gerbils. Make sure you keep them in your pet container. Don't let them get loose at any recruiting area. You know, the thing
now,
go ahead.
These 4 stories have, after we publish these have circled the globe in China, India, Russia, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and most of Eastern Europe is now carrying these stories. And the fact that the Bank of Kabul and every other civilized nation is having their banks rated by the IMF and the money transferred to U.S. or United Kingdom banks is going to be covered pretty much. There'll be a
educational network
probably within 24 hours.
Exactly. Well, we're going to see a major change and shift in our American foreign policy as Pakistan now becomes our enemy. Now, this is just...
That's correct.
Right.
A man was given the Medal of Honor, and he then spoke out about the fact that the company he was working for, this soldier, this National Guard member, is given the Medal of Honor from the president. And he says, by the way, the company that I'm working for builds scopes and rifles. And these rifles and scopes are ending up in the hands of our enemies, and they're killing U.S. soldiers with the scopes and the rifles for the company that I'm currently working for in the United States. Mr. President, we need to change this. And after he handed him the Medal of Honor, the next day the president said he's crazy.
There you have it.
So we are building weapons to kill in the United States of America, to kill United States troops, and we have people speaking out who are officers who now have the Medal of Honor, and they're discredited by the United States mainstream media. We are perpetuating war, killing, war, and we don't care who we kill, and the taking down of banks. It's all about destruction now.
You know, this is very obvious that we are definitely engaged in some pretty nefarious activities around the world. The CIA does their own thing. We have no oversight. The only organization that can oversee the CIA is the Justice Department, but they rarely do anything. I'm encountering I listened to today. I discussed corruption in our cities and towns with a woman who has absolutely been totally screwed over financially for the past 30 years in an area of the country you wouldn't think would be so corrupt, in the area of Wyoming. And she has had nothing but problems financially. And it turns out that the Supreme Court, or actually the courts, are conspiring with the local developers, and it's just, her whole life has been turned upside down. She lost 60 acres of property the past few years. I listened to this woman list all the different things that were used against her, and it clearly showed a very obvious case of a conspiracy against this woman, and she's done nothing wrong. And this is happening to Americans all around the country. It's either the attorneys get you with attorney fees. Go ahead. As
they dig the oil wells, they pump these extremely toxic chemicals like benzene directly into the soil and gets into the groundwater.
Yeah.
And there are tens of thousands of people in Wyoming now discovering things like benzene and chlorine in their groundwater, saying, excuse me, what's going on? Why do I have chlorine and benzene in my table water, in the groundwater now? What the heck is going on?
Yeah. The benzene in the groundwater from fracking, the hydro process they use to get gas out of the ground is completely contaminating water supplies, and the EPA, I think, just recently declared that fracking was dangerous to the water supply. It took a long time.
They used water for fracking. They used to use water for fracking.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the line, they got, I remember reading a story, no, it wasn't 20 years ago, more like 15 years ago, that British Petroleum was fined $15,000 a day, $15,000 because they dumped 100,000 gallons of benzene and pumped it into the groundwater in Alaska.
Zondo wants to know when this caller will be done. Zondo, you don't know Dr. Mount. When he calls, he usually calls for the whole show. I mean, there is no end to it, because he's got so many things he wants to talk about. You know, these issues about pollution, the issues about the New World Order, the issues about the nuclear bombs that are being developed in Iran and now been neutralized, and this is information, we actually traced some of the information just now, Dr. Mount, and we see that there is some mobilization of troops at the border with Iran. So you're right about that.
And we're preparing for an invasion before the 31st so we can keep the bases in Iraq. It's all about destruction now.
Yeah, seems that way.
The only thing left is destruction. This is the only thing they can think about.
Right. Now, somebody asked me in the room, this is another question that came up. Somebody said David's been trashing the Constitution. And no, I never trashed the Constitution. I believe in the amendments to the Constitution, but I want everyone to know that the Constitution was originally developed as a debt note to pay back debt. When we were in bankruptcy 4 years into it in 1787 when we created the Constitution, and believe me, the Bill of Rights were added as an afterthought. So what you're concerned about are the Bill of Rights, primarily. That's really what we're talking about.
How we elect the president. What we're concerned about is the right to freedom of speech.
Right.
The right to freedom of religion. The right to wear a pistol wherever the hell we want to. The right to be free in our property. The right to no property taxes. The right to common law courts. They did a common law court just north of here in Seattle. Yes. And when they applied to the results of the common law courts to the federal judge issued an arrest warrant. We have lost our Bill of Rights. We can no longer hold common law courts. That's one of the amendments to the Constitution. Right.
Well, this is serious. When we can't have common law courts or a writ of habeas corpus, that's all eroding under this new Senate Bill 1867.
Yeah, let's explain habeas corpus. Habeas corpus means if you're arrested, you have the right to ask them, why am I being arrested?
Right.
Now that's habeas corpus.
Yeah.
We lost the right to ask, why are we being arrested?
Yeah.
And the FEMA camps are being fully funded if the Defense Authorization Bill passes. We now will have 806 FEMA camps, and the United States just finished a treaty where they're building a FEMA camp in northern Canada capable of handling 1 million Americans.
Whoa. Well, you know, the FEMA camp / city that I visited, Mishawaka, South Bend, Indiana, could easily handle 1 million people. The way they've constructed the city, once you get in there, you could be trapped in that area with nothing. Somebody said he should run for Congress under ATP. Yeah. Dr. Mount, are you interested in running for Congress under America's Third Party?
I don't think I could run for Congress. There's something in the Constitution about once you accept an appointment from a foreign government, you can only serve the United States government.
Of course, yeah. You were assigned as an ambassador to Melchizedek.
An appointment from a foreign government as ambassador, and that means that I'm ineligible to run for Congress.
He's ineligible.
In the United States.
He's an ambassador. Yeah.
And as an ambassador, I become what they call a world citizen. And as a world citizen, I'm no longer eligible to run for a mere regular citizen. I can no longer be a United States congressman or anything else. It was an option I took to fight the battles for the veterans. I'd do it again.
Okay. Well, your work to expose Agent Orange and also the Gulf War syndrome has been landmark. You've made some strides there. They weren't changes in the veterans. Nothing official was done about Agent Orange or Gulf War syndrome, but you did.
Yeah, they are now recognized by the VA.
They're now recognized as illnesses by the VA. Yeah, that was the official transition.
Talk about time travel.
Somebody says get him to talk about time travel. Dr. Mount is not the expert on time travel. I have another person who could talk to you about time travel, who's actually designing the time travel devices used by aliens in the future. But I'm not going to talk to them. Dr. Mount, do you want to talk about time travel?
I listened to Billy Meyer last night, and Billy Meyer is a Swedish farmer who claims to be an alien contactee with not the Pleiadians but the Pajorians, who are from a constellation he claims beyond the Pleiades.
Oh, right, outside of that Pleiade, yeah.
Anyway, Billy Myers talks about time travel, and if you listen to all of these people that talk about time travel and how the aliens are telling them what's going to happen on planet Earth, Billy Myers said World War III would begin in 2006 because the Pajorians could go into time and tell him. So he said World War III would begin in 2006. And he said, no, I got the dates mixed up. It must be 2008. And after 2008 ended, he said, well, no, it's this year in 2009. And after 2009, he says, no, it's November of 2011.
Okay.
Well, guess what? Every single, from Alman Gordon to every single prophet that predicted the beginning of World War III, Hal Lindsey, all of them are wrong. Even Billy Myers and everyone who talks about time travel says that they have done time travel has made a prediction about something and it hasn't come true. So everyone on the internet has lied.
Well, there you have it. There would be a good reason for them to lie. They get money doing this. David Icke. That's
David Icke predicted the end of the world, and guess what? The sun rose again.
Yeah, it comes back every single time, and a lot of these people make money traveling around doing the circuit, talking about the weird, wacky things that are happening. And I just think that's no better than someone proselytizing for religious support. We're really
David Icke has a religion, and the religion is about the evil oogity boogity lizard people. And he wanders around and gets people frothing in the mouth about how they're going to eat us. And then he predicts the world's going to end, and then it doesn't end. And then he says, well, I was wrong about the date.
Yeah.
The date is really, okay, sure.
Okay, we have a question from the room. Zondo asked, Dave, I have a question for Dr. Mount. If Syria attacks Turkey from the rear, will Greece help?
If Syria attacks Turkey at this point, Turkey will squash Syria like stepping on a leaf that's fallen off, like a 300-pound man stepping on a leaf that's fallen off a tree.
That's right.
Turkey is loaded for bear and ready to attack Syria and then attack Greece.
Turkey does not like Israel. Turkey does not like Israel at all. And
what Turkey does not realize is the Department of Defense plans to have Syria and Turkey break out into a war, and then they will cut Turkey in half and then completely remap the entire Middle East. Turkey is set to be divided in two.
Oh, so you say Syria will crush Turkey, is what you're saying?
No,
without lubrication?
If Syria invades Turkey right now, Turkey will squash Syria like a mosquito.
Wow. Aren't you underestimating Syria's MiG fighting force from 1966? Those dangerous MiGs they're up ready to go, and they can still hold gas in their tanks. They're not leaking.
This was the last day of a logistics U.S. Army course.
Okay.
And we were supposed to draw a defensive map where we were supposed to coordinate with Syria. And at the end of the class, for the last half hour, I'm just goofing off drawing tanks. Because I think, okay, the class is over, we're all going home. We've been here for a week in Salt Lake, right?
Yeah.
So I'm ready to, so this major tries to make fun of me. And I stood up and I was only a captain at the time. I said, look, if you think that the Syrian troops are brave and wonderful troops, you got a thing coming to you. They're a bunch of freaking cowards that run at the drop of a hat. And let me tell you, there are some good ones. Don't get me wrong about that. There are some good special forces. But the majority of Syrian troops do not want to fight in the war and will run like cowards. They always have. They always will. If Syria attacks Turkey, Turkey will yell boo and squash Syria.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
It's entirely possible.
Turkey, I think, is bigger, so, I mean, they're a bigger country, so it makes sense.
Well, no, they have several combat-trained divisions right now sitting on the Syrian border. They've been going into the northern Iraq and killing people.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because we had a guest come in, they gave a link, and this is unconfirmed, and what is it? It's an actual kind of a blog article, but they claim they're anonymous sources, so you can't really trust it.
Right.
But supposedly, according to these anonymous sources, NATO troops may be going on the Syria and Iran border in Israel, maybe pulling together up there.
Yes, we have another anonymous backing.
We are having NATO troops land right now north of Amman, the capital, which is Damascus and Amman are only about hour and a half drive away. So it's only going to be about a 2-hour drive to take the entire country of Syria. This is not a big thing. To take out Syria is nothing, but the problem is Russia would lose an enormous amount of investment.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, Russia's not going to just sit around and watch Syria just disappear. I really think we're underestimating this.
Within a half a mile of the aircraft carrier the aircraft carrier Bush, they have a nuclear-armed Russian submarine sitting underneath the American fleet. They sunk themselves in the mud. We did a very serious article when Russia moved 3 submarines and the 3 surface ships into Syrian port.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing seismic testing, and nobody in NATO warned the Russians. So these submarines pull in, and there's explosions. And I wrote this article, and the Russians immediately contacted their submarine fleet And as the mud was settling, one of the Russian submarines settled into the mud and is sitting under the George Bush.
Under the George Bush.
They have the capability of obliterating the entire carrier group. It's a suicide mission.
You're saying Syria has the ability to obliterate the entire carrier group?
Russia has the
They're going to fire back on us.
The LG
just like the shooter did 2.5 weeks ago that I warned the president about 8.5 weeks ago.
So you warned the president about the shooter from Oregon that fired a pock shot at the White House when no one was there. You warned the president about this? How do you warn the president? How do you get a letter through?
Well, I publish it on ATFN. I used to do it in letters.
So you think the president is watching ATFN?
I got the opportunity to do it on a television.
Yeah.
That seemed to work pretty effectively. But apparently somebody in the FBI wanted the president dead, so they tore the TV station down.
You know, I don't believe that personally. I don't believe that somebody at the FBI is trying to attack our president. I just find that hard to believe.
Look, I have been yelled at by the FBI, Secret Service, U.S. Marshals, and all kinds of ABC organizations for saving the president's life. You know, there's a lot of people who want the president dead right now. I'm not one of them.
Okay, yeah, well, I certainly want to protect the office of the presidency. I don't necessarily like our president, but I do not want any bad things to happen to him, obviously.
So these people who are monitoring your program are, in essence, trying to kill the president because some of the information we put out here on your program saves the president's life. So by knocking you off the air, these people are saying, oh, we don't care if Obama dies.
We certainly,
by the way, the next bet on Obama is going to be the 23rd of December, and that way you're part of saving the president's life, and the next false flag will be the 28th of December.
Okay.
They've got that covered already.
Okay, well, folks, we made a note here of that 23rd and 28th are days to look out for, according to Dr. Mount. Anything like a false flag operation or a threat to our president's life, that's something serious. You know, anybody threatening can actually serve prison time, you know.
Sorry, they just need to keep them, just have somebody around them at all times.
That's cool.
It's not a big deal for 2 days of the month, on the 23rd. And it's not a big deal to take the president to another Asia conference on the 28th. This is not a big deal.
Right.
They do it all the time. When they put the bullet through the president's window, they had him on a plane. He was in the middle of the air on the way to Asia.
There you have it. You know, Dr. Mount, Barack Obama today met with Prime Minister Maliki of Iraq. They flew Maliki over here to kind of wrap things up and say job well done and blah, blah, blah. You know, Prime Minister Maliki did not want our troops to leave Iraq. And we're leaving a tremendous amount of infrastructure in play. And Obama hasn't even...
We are leaving enormous amounts of infrastructure in play.
Right. And Obama hasn't even answered to this, and nobody in the media has asked him the question, why are we leaving so much stuff behind? He just wants to get out because he wants to be reelected by the leftists that put him there. So
that's correct.
That's kind of sad that we're actually violating the work and the trust we have with the dead men and women who fought and died over there protecting the freedom of the Iraqi people. If that degenerates and it turns into a civil war in our absence, you have only one person to blame, and that's Barack Obama.
It will, and the reason it will is because that's who the Iraqi people are. They don't understand freedom. They don't know what freedom is. They don't want freedom. They want a dictator.
Right.
That's what they're comfortable with. Their father running it. It's a Muslim state. Elections are not part of the Quran. Why didn't we read the Quran before we went there?
Yeah, exactly. We should have read every bit of it, including the part about Muhammad.
We should have read all of it before we, marrying what, a 6-year-old?
8-year-old. I think she was 11 when he finally married her, but who's counting? Mr. Sandusky would have loved that religion.
Huh?
I don't track viewers, Repub. We just published my blackface video from 3 years ago, and we aren't tracking viewers. It doesn't matter. We did it only because it was something people wanted to see. I suppressed it for 3 years, basically because I didn't want to be perceived as anything other than a guy who believes in integration. And I believe that all of us could get along. But I don't think that it's that disrespectful of any one particular race. I think the blackface video is talking about expression and freedom of speech. It's really addressing the fact that no one can say anything bad about Obama or they're called a racist. It's a simple problem we're facing. Yeah. Go ahead.
Besides, he's only 1/6 black. So what part am I racist about? The 50% white? Or am I racist about the fact that he's 1/3 Arabian? Or am I racist about the fact that he's 1/6 black? He is the least amount of black. What am I racist about?
No.
I haven't figured that one out yet.
Yeah. I don't know what you're racist about. I'm not calling you a racist. I'm merely saying that Obama is living under the shield of demagoguery. And if you look up the word demagogue, it's got Obama's face on it.
National Socialist. Nazi.
Well, there's a problem with his plan, his game plan, and I've identified a logical error in the socialist economic model. And we're going to be exploiting that error and discussing it in our book, which will be appearing at the end of the year. Basically, the error of judgment is that a socialist regime and economy requires the working class to support the non-working class. Well, in our country, we have less and less working class. Practically half the population, more than half the population now, does not pay taxes. They just don't qualify. So we are really rapidly running out of funds for a socialist bureaucracy, which Obama seems to be promoting. So we have a different plan entirely, and that's for the government to actually get a return on investment. Instead of taxes, we're going to actually get into the business of doing things, like making generic pharmaceuticals, like making an automobile that everybody can drive and get 100 miles per gallon and cost about $15,000. Things like that.
We simply follow the Ford Polo design, and the Ford Polo gets 140 miles to the gallon. This is not hard. It's already been done.
The Ford Polo gets 140 miles per gallon?
The Ford Polo gets 140 miles per gallon.
Ford Polo, I got to look that up. I've never even heard of this car.
Ford Polo?
Just like the Ford, not the Ford Polo, the Volkswagen Polo.
The Volkswagen Polo.
And the smart car in Canada has no smog control devices on it. And the diesel smart car in Canada, I have a friend with one, and he gets 100 miles to the gallon. We sat down and figured it out one day.
Okay.
Wow.
He gets 100 miles per gallon. You're right, David. It can be done. It is being done.
Skills.
Yeah.
Because he's the same one that said that his other friend in Canada got.
Have I lost you?
Well, you claim your friend in Canada got 170 miles per gallon.
On another vehicle.
I have another friend who tweaked the Saturn.
Right.
And he gets incredible mileage. He drives down here on a gallon of gas. He took the computer apart and tweaked it. I don't know what he did to it, but he tweaked it. We rode around all day in Vancouver, and the gas, we rode around.
He tweaked the odometer, so every time it goes.
Well, I mean, look, no, seriously. There was a guy named Smiley. I believe his name was Mike Smiley. He came up with a way in which you can take every little gas particle and vaporize it, and he built chambers so that every time the carburetor or the fuel injectors kicked in, they didn't send gas into the carburation. They sent a chamber of vapor. And this man actually got 200 miles per gallon out of a vehicle on gas alone. And he died.
Okay.
He was mysteriously killed about 15 years ago. But
well, when I was 22 years old, somebody advertised in the Sacramento Bee, new carburetor to get Volkswagen Bugs at 110 miles to the gallon. And I called him and I talked with him. He was about 65. He sounded very old though. And I called him back the next week, and the number had been disconnected.
Wow. So they just took him out. By the way, the VW Polo gets 74 miles per gallon, according to Wikipedia. I don't know where you're getting this. 74 is not 140. So.
No, well, you know what? 74 is a lot better than 30.
I'll take anything better than.
Miles per gallon is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia.
I don't. I'm not using Wikipedia as my source on all occasions, but whenever I have a go-to source, I think Wikipedia is pretty quick. But
no, I have some real problems with Wikipedia, and the problems I have with Wikipedia have to do with when you edit an article and they disagree with it, it's pulled off Wikipedia immediately.
I know. I used to have a problem with that, but I accept it now because it actually makes it more valid.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take a new picture, maybe.
I quoted from the senatorial report in Wikipedia, and they ripped it off of Wikipedia within 10 minutes.
Oh,
I quoted the U.S. Senate report from Senator Rigel on the bioweapons sold to Iraq, and they ripped it off Wikipedia and refused to email me back.
Wow.
So then I looked up several specific items about Gulf War illness, and in every case, Wikipedia lied. And we have the Senate report to prove it. So they are a politically correct organization. I look at them and I think, you turds. Sorry, that's probably.
Did you call them turds? Did you call them turds?
Yeah, sorry, that's not appropriate on television either.
Turd is politically correct. That is correct.
Is politically correct.
Crap is okay too.
No, it's not. I told a kid today.
Oh, crap is not politically correct?
Right.
Okay.
I just don't like people to lie, and they lie. And there's nothing more that can be said. They simply lie.
They have the oil companies and coal companies have been rigging our system so that we all use more gas. This much is true. That is a fact, Jack. Period.
That is correct.
That's
I had a Buick LeSabre in 1987 with a window sticker of 38 miles per gallon on the highway. This is a full-size 1987 Buick LeSabre.
Right.
On the window when I bought it.
38 miles per gallon.
MPG highway.
Yes. You know, the Lincoln Town Car, believe it or not, 2000 and 2002, all get 33 miles per gallon. Now, how does that work? I mean, how do you get a massive car that gets 33?
The 1966 Volkswagen Bug at 36 miles to the gallon. 1966.
Right, 1956. Yeah.
1960. How does the 1946 Volkswagen get 36 miles to the gallon?
Right.
And how does 70 years later a car get 20 miles to the gallon?
You got me. It's got to be intentional, and there's a reason, folks. They want us to consume more energy. There's a reason why you can pay $3.50 a gallon in America for gas, but you go to Libya and get it for 14 cents a gallon.
In 1974,
there's a reason for that.
Henry Kissinger signed on to the MSSN report, calling for the reduction of the population to 1 billion people.
Okay, Henry Kissinger asked for the reduction.
In 1972, the United States set out on a goal, creating the Office of Population Control under the State Department, to reduce the world's population with a deadline of 21 December 2012. That's why the need for war. That's why the need for Odyssey Dawn, a 10-year program.
Okay, so you're arguing,
population to 1 billion.
So folks, Dr. Mount just gave you the quintessential top-of-the-line theory that's out there, and that is that Henry Kissinger and many of the other New World Order people have been purposely trying to destroy our population, shrink it by 6 billion people.
SM-200 directive.
SM-200? Johnny Quest? I'm sorry, what?
The National Security Study Memorandum Directive, signed April 1974 by Henry Kissinger on behalf of President Nixon.
Right.
It gives the executive summary and then goes into detail in Department of State records stating that we will have reduced the population to 1 billion people. This is a United States directive ordered by the International Monetary Fund. It's in our State Department records, and I just gave you the number.
You gave it SM-200, yeah.
There it is, folks.
There it is, SM-200.
Now, what is it?
Yes, Standing Stone's Kissinger should be held for war crimes, right. I agree. There's no explanation for it, Repub. Henry Kissinger has been in the backbone of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's worked through side channels through Trilateral Commission.
What is the executive order again?
It's SM-200.
SM-200.
And Henry Kissinger has been the kingpin.
A lot of these things aren't available on the net anymore.
Right, they've been
scrubbed. They're tracking me. I find them, I talk about them on TV, they rip them off the internet.
They're tracking
then,
and discovering
why, you know, the thing is...
There's no trace of this.
Oh, yeah. So that's convenient.
It's convenient. It's a self-sealing premise.
Yeah, it is a self-sealing premise, which is another word for bull.
Not necessarily, no. Just because a person's paranoid doesn't mean people aren't after them or out to get them. And I'm not saying you're...
You know, and here's the critical thing. People don't want to die. And there's not people out to get me anymore.
No.
It used to be that way. But that has ended because people are beginning to understand that when I quote from something and show Henry Kissinger's signature and the president's signature, they think, oh my God, that must be real. That's got the president's signature on it. Look, the vice president's signature.
Mm-hmm.
Here in this report on the middle class by the vice president, he's talking about sealing all 401ks.
Okay, here's
that's Joe Biden's signature on it.
It is sealing all 401ks. He just wants to make more money. This is called the Cassandra Project. I'm reading from the Cassandra Project WordPress right now. Folks, you can read about what Dr. Mount is referring to. Kissinger's plan to destroy 6 billion people on the face of the earth. Population control. Read about it. Come back to me after you've thoroughly studied it and say, David, Dr. Mount has some good points. You know, because I've always felt that you had some good points.
For August 4th, 1972, and you can go back to the records and find this out, a spiral-shaped sun burst from the sun and then passed the planet Earth and subsequently knocked out every single city's power.
Wow.
Over a one-day period. I think that was for August 1972. I'm using my memory on this.
Mm-hmm.
And on that day, the power in every city in the world went out.
Right.
Every single transformer was fried.
Yeah.
It never hit the mainstream papers.
Right.
And David Suzuki got involved. All these old Michio Kaku, all these famous people that you read about got involved in this and set forth, what are we going to do? The sun's going to go nuts. What do we do?
Right.
And all of them agreed that they need to reduce the world's population to between 500 million and 1 billion people or we won't survive.
In their minds, you know, this was...
Forces over the next 3 or 4 years of war,
Yeah.
more war, and more war.
So Repub is kind of buying into this conspiracy. He actually believes it's possible. Interesting. Well, you know, I was aware of Henry Kissinger's his plan called low-intensity conflict. He developed this plan in 1975, in which he described what the American nation would be doing well into the future. And sure enough, it got us into a few wars. It also morphed into preventative hostility, preventative engagement, and preemptive strike. And this preemptive strike theory actually was the start of the Iraq War and many others. Go ahead.
I just talked to the guy from Central West Africa 2 days ago.
I talked to the guy from Central West Africa.
86-year-old veteran.
Okay.
He was going to have a stroke.
Okay.
Then he did something stupid. He took some Viagra and it caused a blood clot in his left arm, and the blood clot went to the right arm.
Yikes.
I went to visit him. I said, "You have a blood clot?" "No, I don't. It's just gout." I said, "You're going to have a stroke unless you go to the doctor." "No, I'm not." I said, "You're going to have a series of strokes." Well, a week later, he had a series of strokes.
Wow. So you knew, you predicted his illness. You seem to have an uncanny ability to do that.
I told him what was going to happen to him, and he just ignored me.
Yeah.
Some of these things I just know.
Amazing.
I know who bombed the bases in Iraq. I know that someone's going to have a stroke. I know when his next stroke is going to be. Well,
you seem to be clued in on a lot of information. You know, many people believe that you know, some of us are gifted with a large pineal gland, and then others are gifted with a large penis. But you know, but no, seriously, the pineal gland.
I'm not on the second half of that.
Oh, okay. I didn't. That's a little too TMI for me, but. The pineal gland is the thing that they're trying to destroy.
Everybody's joking about a big one. You just look at them and joke about a small one, and make you feel superior. And it's just a party thing. I don't go to those kinds of parties anymore.
Yeah.
I left college a long time ago.
And it's just too immature for me to discuss stuff like that on a show like this. But we will talk about the pineal gland. Now, the pineal gland is...
You and I get off on a tangent sometimes.
No. It's a good tangent because the pineal gland is perhaps one of the areas in your brain that picks up psychic abilities, intuition.
But the pineal gland can't see the future.
It can't?
Can't. The pineal gland looks at the present.
Okay.
The pineal gland is your third eye, and when someone calls, you know who's calling. Somehow I've been gifted with the gift to focus on and see things, and perhaps see things in the future.
Perhaps, you never
only
know.
on the things that affect mankind. In other words, I guess I could focus on the stock market, but why?
Yeah. Well, why? Because you could make a lot of money. That's why. Well, you could you could seriously clean up if you use this ability. You're not trying to seek personal gain, though. I don't think you don't come off as a guy who's greedy and looking for cash.
No, I'm not seeking personal gain. Although it does bother me sometimes. I feel that I should be doing things other than working on apple trees on ladders. I think that it's a waste of my ability to do home projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a kind of it's a humbling behavior. You know, even some of the greatest leaders in the world, Mahatma Gandhi, he performed gardening activities. You know, it's not uncommon for people to do a broad spectrum of things. I do that myself, even though I consider myself way more intelligent doing menial labor, but it's sometimes humbling to do that.
Well, yes, it is, and I think it's oftentimes a waste of talent. But then the U.S. is after destruction. It's after war.
Right.
And what more can be said? It simply wants war.
Here's a quote from Henry Kissinger. Populations with a high proportion of growth, the young people, who are in much higher proportions, are likely to be more volatile, unstable, prone to extremes, alienation, and violence than older people. These young people can be more readily persuaded to attack the legal institutions of the government or real property of the establishment, imperialists or multinational corporations. So basically,
that's what they've done with Egypt and with the whole Arab Spring movement.
Yeah, they're promoting the youth to break down the entire power structure in these countries. And this concept has no real mind or strategy behind it. The concept is just to stimulate conflagration and dismay and civil unrest so that the great leader, the New World Order overseer, the IMF and World Bank can sweep in and take over, and then everyone becomes the serf of the New World Order. This is how they operate. Right. All right, so we figured them all out. Sally's gave me a thumbs up on that. This is how they operate. We know what they're doing. We know what they're up to.
Repub's even, you finally won Repub over. He says, wow, Henry Kissinger sounds like a little corrupt bastard.
They do. They really do. And these
You're
people,
waking up Repub. That's pretty amazing.
One of our biggest skeptics is starting to see the light. We know their plan. We know that they didn't plan on America actually being as big as we are, and we are the one kind of a wrench in their entire game plan for the New World Order.
That's correct.
If we become stronger than they are and stop being used as a 911 to the NATO forces and all that, we then gain a big upper hand over these elitists, and we can actually do some serious damage to their plans to take over the world. I seriously believe that this is not the New World Order, but rather the old world of monarchy clinging to the last vestiges of their money. I really believe that they're just hanging on they've got tons of money. And this whole facade of a monetary system they've constructed where they print up money recklessly and give it away freely. You know, last week alone when the 6 central banks got together, they signed over $51 billion to the euro. It's basically money down the drain. That's correct. Because in all economic theories, especially Keynesian economics, what this is essentially a liquidity trap. And a liquidity trap occurs when monetarism gets out of control. And that's exactly what's going on. A liquidity trap was when money is just going nowhere. It's not going to go toward building the euro. It's not going to go toward improving their functionality. It's going into somebody's hands because they're scared that they're going to lose more money. They've already lost money. So that's what's going on. And we know that that's the problem.
When we paid those $14 trillion, which is unimaginable, in bailouts, almost $12.5 trillion went into bonuses.
Exactly. You know,
and it's incredible the amount of what's happening. They're literally transferring money into the hands of the elite. So we have $200 trillion in our bank. So they give $12.5 trillion away.
Right.
Well, that increases it from $200 trillion to $212.5 trillion.
Researcher, make him an op too. Researcher, you get to be an op.
Trillions of dollars to these elites, and they keep boosting the bank accounts. Well, what's left for the rest of us? That means every price that we can think of is going to rise. Gasoline, bread.
Right.
Yeah. Well, no.
Everything's going up.
Control.
Yep. Everything's going up.
Cheese, dog biscuits, creamer, Coca-Cola.
Everything.
Well, eggs are government controlled. God.
Yeah. Eggs are pretty commonly produced. Yeah.
Wheat has gone from $11 for 50 pounds of wheat to almost $18 it happened in about a week.
Yeah, I could believe it. You know, the skyrocketing prices at the markets come on the heels of the Fed warning about the dangers of deflation. Now, I don't know if anyone at the Fed actually shops for their food. They probably eat out, because they are not aware that Americans are not seeing lower prices anywhere on anything.
Well, and here is probably the news story of the century that nobody's covering.
Yes.
For the first time since 1624, American agricultural production has decreased.
Wow.
Well, in the past 2 to 3 years, it's dropped by 2% every year. That's the study I read.
I realized it dropped 2 years ago because our apple production skyrocketed. But thanks to Obama, our food production, for the first time since this country was started, is now down.
Yes, and world food production is down 1.3%, and the population is up 5% in the past 2 years. So
the reason it's
we got a problem
is because the government has gotten into everybody's business. Here in the rhubarb fields, we were the biggest rhubarb producing county in the world, and the taxes went from $1,500 per acre to $15,000 per acre in about 2 days, literally. And rhubarb production was cut in half instantly within a year.
Yeah.
And that was all because the government taxed the counties, which taxed the growers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The federal government shut food production down in Pierce County about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost 90% of our rhubarb growers in about 5 years.
Great.
And that's all federal interference.
Federal interference. The government isn't even planning on grain storage. They have no grain reserve.
No, there's no grain reserves.
No grain reserves at all. And our country is vulnerable in that area, too. If you like your cereals and your sugar smacks, folks, you know, they're going to be coming in slower quantities if this country faces more drought conditions. We're not preparing at all under Obama.
Sugar.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how to shock the American people any more than we already are. You know, I get a lot of guff from people, you know, thinking that I'm just out to, you know, aggrandize myself or something, and I'm really just trying to help the American people and our country out by talking about a lot of these issues. People don't even take anything seriously unless it's happening directly to you. It's not something that most people are worried about. It's very weird. It's like we're all in a kind of a fugue state, we've been anesthetized by the media. Who knows? It could even be the fluoride in our water or the radio frequency stimulation we're getting when we're driving around.
I just talked with a guy. He goes out about every 3 months and works for the Rotary Club and puts solar panels in places around the world so that people can have, you know, things like fresh water.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll put in there'll be a 80-foot deep well where people have to walk down these stairs and bring the buckets back up. And he'll bring something in incredible like a pump and a solar panel. And then they'll build a big round tub. And the solar panel, the pump will pump water into the tub, which is right there on the surface. So people can just walk. Instead of walking down this 80-foot set of stairs, they can simply walk to this tub and get a bucket of water. So he's doing things like that. And I said, people in the cities are going insane. And he says, yeah. I said, but in the country they're not. He said, that's correct. He says, the city people are still normal. I said, the reason that is because the Gwen units, which are units put on cell towers by the U.S. government, now broadcasting high-frequency tones to make people afraid. Freaked out.
Right.
Strange.
Yes.
He says, yeah, every city I go to, it's like that.
Yeah. We traveled all around the country, Sarah and I did, and we encountered this beep on our cell phones that you can do it yourself. You can put it near your radio on your car and drive around with your cell phone running actively and keep it near your radio, and you'll hear this deet, 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 every 15-20 minutes. And it's getting worse. You notice how it's getting worse?
Yeah, it is getting worse.
They're pumping more of these frequencies out to disturb us and I think fragment our brains. I think that's the one thing they're able to do is make everyone disoriented.
Well, I had a quote friend. I was looking at the real American flag, the civilian American flag, versus the military American flag. And of course, the fringe means martial law, and the little dangly things means Admiralty Court, according to the United States Code 4. So we're currently under martial law, and the courts use Admiralty law, maritime law. So, boy, where I was going with that.
Yeah, don't. Well, you could talk about the idea of maritime law, but to say that we are in martial law right now is just absolutely incorrect. We have not declared martial law.
The yellow fringe around the flag means martial law. Homeland Security does not have the yellow fringe around the flag because Homeland Security is not part of the United States, and their flag, including the FBI and several other agencies, does not have the gold fringe around the flag. But we're in deep doo-doo, and I don't know what it's going to take to wake the American public up. So I was led to a guy with the CIA, and he actually he told me that he would change the frequencies in my phone to affect my brain in certain ways. And so I went along with this for a couple of months. And he would change the frequencies coming out of my phone. And now remember, I'm not on the phone with anybody.
Right.
But he was vibrating my phone at different frequencies to find out what would happen to me.
Wow.
He was trying to raise my frequency so that I would ascend. It was a project he was working on, and I found him because I was looking for the civil flag, not the American military flag.
Interesting. Well, are you cooking your dinner right now? You hear some banging, clanking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was scraping some bacon.
Oh, that's okay.
I spent most of the day outside in trees, trimming apple trees and mowing lawns.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I know those things are, drudgery, but they've got to be done.
Now, here's an article that I gave you this issue, November Popular Mechanics of. It appeared in November of 1965. Popular Mechanics, and this issue of Popular Mechanics is clearly describing brain control by radio. Now, brain control by radio is not something that we should take lightly. Since 1965, they've known about it. They've known that you can control animals, and this studies have been going on for some time, analyzing the behavior of people. I recently saw Chris Angel. One of his acts is he has women wear some sort of a necklace around their neck, and he's able to shut their voice box down.
Just with a necklace?
Yeah. So radio frequencies are obviously, you can target the voice box itself, and you can shut down the electrical connections from the brain to the voice box, so a person wants to talk but unable to. Yeah. The
Beatles had a riot years and years ago, and in COINTELPRO, or Senator Church's final report, it's a U.S. Senate report,
right,
they talked about retuning the Beatles guitars because the natural solfeggio A is 440 kilohertz.
Okay.
And they retuned the guitars based on the A-tone guitar to 440 kilohertz, and they had a riot. And they determined that by lowering it from 444 to 400 kilohertz, it created riotous behavior in humans.
Did you used to watch that?
That was one example.
Sign off and they said it's a little message.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, well, this is interesting. So you can control certain activities, emotions. You can evoke emotions with certain radio frequencies, and that's one of the reasons why when I walk around Walmart, I feel like the fluorescent lights seems to be emitting some sort of I don't know, this buy. You notice how you keep saying buy?
Now here's something that they're doing. We're hearing hums all across the country. Linda Moulton Howe talks about it. Now, Linda was Miss Idaho years ago, and then she was sponsored by the Department of Defense. So this is a DOD kind of a study. But
right.
Linda talked about the hums, and indeed there are hums all across the country. What is happening is that every power station is computerized. So a technician can go to the power station near your house and create electrical discontinuity within the wires. The wires will hum at a particular frequency, and it will cause you near the power lines to go crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can believe it.
Now, this is being done all across the country right now.
Right. I can believe it. So a lot of the people, like I run around in traffic all the time, and I see how edgy people are. It's kind of strange. Sometimes they're more edgy than others. Mm-hmm. So you don't know what's causing that and why more people are more edgy. We know that the lunar eclipse that we recently had affects emotions. So we know there's all kinds of things we don't understand. We don't really have a clear view of. So if they do understand that they can create frequencies that can stimulate all kinds of bad emotions, they could trigger revolts. They could trigger riots. I wonder if the Occupy Wall Street movement is because people have bad digital phone reception on their iPhone.
Well, this is what was planned. We know that the Lucas Trust, or the Lucifer Trust, as it was designed in the United Nations,
Right.
We know the Lucas Trust has been paying David Rockefeller. Now, the Lucas Trust gets this money from you, the taxpayer. They've been paying David Rockefeller to pay the unions because he owns most of the unions. They pay the unions to put out union agitators in the Occupy Wall Street. So I recently went to Occupy Tacoma.
Mm-hmm.
There were 10 occupiers and 4 union organizers. So these union organizers marched these 10 or 12 people down to the Tacoma ports.
Yeah.
And shut down the ports. Well, what happens when a port shuts down? American Shipping, for example, had a stock value of $140 a share at the end of 2007. Today it's $2.69. So they're hurting. So when the Occupy group shuts down the port, guess what? The shipping company collects.
Yep, they collect.
On lost revenue based on a 10-year average.
Right.
For the last 4 years, they've lost their shirt. So they go back 10 years, and they get paid a healthy sum for sitting on their rear.
Right.
So the Occupy Tacoma group, the Occupy Seattle group, the Occupy Oakland group, is being manipulated by the unions so that the unions can go to the insurance companies for money. Now, the insurance companies are broke, so they're going to the states, Washington State, Oregon State, Michigan State.
Right.
They're going to the states with ports, and they're saying, we need money. So these Occupy Tacoma, Occupy Seattle, Occupy Oakland groups are shutting the ports down so the taxpayers can pay the shipping companies and the unions for doing nothing.
Right. Not unheard of to fleece the insurance companies. Many of these people do this on the offside, or they go after free energy credits. That's another scam that's going on in the pulp industry. They're mixing diesel in with their pulp and calling it biodiesel, and they're getting a couple $1 million a month from U.S. taxpayers just to run pulp mills in America. All these little tricks that the corporations are using to suck money out of our system. This is a white-collar crime, folks. It's what is being done.
The Occupy movement is typically being used by the unions to make money for the unions.
It is. And I ran a story last night with the Countdown to Economic Collapse. Deals with 2 issues, important issues. I want all of you to watch it if you can. YouTube.com/America's Third Party. That is all about how the unions in Washington embedded themselves with the Occupy Seattle movement right away. They went door to door and solicited over 100,000 innocent people to try to join this movement. And this is what SEIU is doing. The Service Employees International Union is behind this effort in Seattle that you're describing. So we ran with that story in our video.
People, the thugs, the mouthy felons who are out there screaming at the press, the people who claim to be fighting for the unions, the people who are holding up signs in front of the grocery store, these are not union members. They're paid minimum wage.
Right, yeah. Minimum wage, you're right.
The guys who are saying SEIU is unfair. Well, it's so unfair that the union members won't even come out and protest.
Oh yeah, exactly. They're afraid. You know,
I don't know what they are, but these are not union members on the streets.
No, they're not. In fact, these people are just paid to collect signatures or just rabble-rouse, and they're given a minimum wage, if that. This one of the things they've got going, petition signers can make $1 a signature on some of the petitions they've got cooking.
Correct.
The political system is being rigged as well this way, and it's really, really sad. Because Americans have become so apathetic, this is a ripe area for people to continually run around and pay people to stand in front of markets harassing people, and people just want to get them out of their face, so they sign a document. It doesn't even matter what they're signing. They could be signing away all their rights. It wouldn't matter to them. They just they don't want anyone to bother them at the market, so these people, of course, are bothering them at the market. It's going on and on in America.
One of the things that I have been researching is that capitalism, communism, and socialism are all the same. It's an ism. It's an activity. It's the thought pattern.
Yeah.
We had a free enterprise system, and we were capitalists. So when we invest in a company, we get the return. But when we don't obey the anti-union laws, we become a capitalism society, and the large companies buy the small companies, and all of a sudden we have a monopoly, and there's no difference between any ism, communism, socialism, capitalism.
Yeah.
But there is a difference between a socialistic society, communistic society, and a capitalistic society. And the reason this is important to you, the listeners, is because you will hear people trash capitalism. Well, that's true. Capitalism means that large corporations grow. Now, Fortress Financial bought the 6 largest banks. Another corporation, I think it's Sirius, I have to look it up, is now purchasing every arms manufacturer in this country.
Right.
There are these large IMF corporations that are buying controlling interest in every corporation in America.
Yes.
True capitalism.
Yes.
Total complete control by 1 or 2 corporations in the world.
It is, and we saw this. This is monopoly. This monopoly formation has been going on for a long time, and very few mechanisms are left to stop it. The Justice Department is one of the anti-monopoly busters that's available, but they don't do a lot. And when you have people buying companies, shell companies, and owning all the distribution, advertising, communications, they are trying to control everything in our life so that they can continually fleece us until we're dead. And if what you're saying is true, and this is a big plan to just kill off 6 billion people in the world, and they're committing some sort of mass murder all the time through everything from vaccinations to any number of possible things, poisoning the water. If this is going on, can you imagine? I can't imagine a solution to this problem. They've locked down the brains of the American people. The American people can't seem to think for themselves right now. They can't seem to decide anything other than left or right, Republican or Democrat, Republican. They can't seem to make a decision other than yes or no. So the American people have become like automatons, zombies, who are just walking through life.
C-E-R-B-E-R-U-S, Cerberus.
Cerberus.
It was the 3-headed dog that guarded hell, the gates of hell. Cerberus. Cerberus is buying up all kinds of companies, like Remington. They just bought Remington.
Wow.
Now, a red flag should go up in America when a foreign corporation buys American arms manufacturers that have been around for almost 200 years.
Oh, yeah. Cerberus, Remington. I'm going to look this one up. Thank you. Well,
you want to write that down?
Cerberus. Yeah, Cerberus buys Remington. I just never...
Cerberus, Fortress Financial.
Cerberus and Fortress Financial.
Controlling interest in almost
Cerberus and
everybody.
Fortress Financial.
And what
These
Fortress Financial?
Are just sprouting up out of nowhere.
Yeah. Buys Remington. Okay, I will look into this. Hey, Dr. Mount, thank you. It's 8 o'clock, coming to the end of the show. Yep. Appreciate the call. It's always great to hear your voice, and I'm glad you gave us some inside information we hadn't been aware of about the buildup of troops along the Syrian border and lots of different other things that we were unaware of.
You're the first one to break it. This happened right now. We've been on for an hour. This happened 5 hours ago. This is breaking news. I think you're the first one to carry it.
Interesting. So we're running with the first story here, folks, at the buildup of troops in Syria, outside of Syria. Hey, thanks for the rap, Doc. According to Movie Writer, he wrote, "Thanks for the rap." Okay, I will be talking to you later. I'm going to just sign off with you and continue ending the show, and we'll talk to you again, Dr. Mount.
That sounds good, David. Thank you, Sarah, so very much for having me on.
Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Wow. Hey, well, we had a great discussion. We found out that the Volkswagen Polo gets 70 miles per gallon. Dr. Mount was the person that said it was 140, but we had experts check it out and Google it and found out that it gets 70. That's pretty good. A lot of vehicles are not getting access to our market in America, primarily because of the air pollution laws in California. You see, California is the largest state in terms of commerce in the Union, and it dictates what kind of vehicles we're allowed into this country. And some of these really, really great gas mileage cars out of Germany get 70 miles per gallon. They're not allowed in because their emission standards don't comply with California's emission standards. Very, very messed up. I agree. So we need to work toward allowing more competition and better mileage cars into our country so that we can become less reliant on foreign oil. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to keep simplifying the complex world around us. That's what we seem to be doing on our shows. And again, I did post my Countdown to Economic Collapse video at 3 in the morning last night because I had a really big editing crisis.
You can get it, the link's right at the top of the chat room.
If you want to look at that, check that video. I am going to...
I'm going to actually play this, which somebody gave us a
very curious coincidence. Okay.
So, all right, I'm going to play that for you
Lord
guys.
Byron, writer, and yeah, I like Lord Byron.
Okay, I'm going to play that little video. I have no idea what it was. It was just linked to us by researchers, so I figured I'd play that. All right, have a great evening, and we'll be back here
Zoe.
tomorrow night. Thank
See
you.
you tomorrow night. Thank you. 6 to 8.
6 to 8 p.m. Pacific. All right.
Thank you, Sally.
Alright, let's see. Desktop. We'll go full desktop.
Full desktop.
Okay.